Why did this old man demand the baby's placenta? A story by Bonietta. The old man's sudden entrance into the labor ward had startled everyone. He was frantic, pacing and shouting, "Give me the baby placenta." His voice echoed through the ward, and his eyes seemed desperate. The nurse, though taken aback, calmly stood her ground. She replied, "Sir, the placenta can either go to the mother or the father. In this case, I'll allow the mother to handle it." But the old man was enraged. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" he shouted. "How dare you involve yourself in a family matter?" His face flushed with anger, and it was clear he didn't care who was watching. The nurse, however, remained composed. The hospital staff and even the other visitors could not understand what was happening. Why was the old man so desperate to take the placenta, and why was he so angry over it? The baby wasn't his, so what could be the connection? To understand this strange occurrence, we must go back a few years to when a young woman named Hannah's life took an unexpected turn. Hannah was a bright and humble girl, living in Bonnie City with her wealthy parents, Mr. and Mrs. Edward. They had always supported her dreams and ambitions, especially her goal of one day taking over her father's successful business. Despite growing up in luxury, Hannah was known for her down-to-earth nature and her refusal to let wealth define her. She was focused on her studies at the University of Bonnie, where she was pursuing a degree in business administration. Though many boys admired her, Hannah had no interest in relationships. Her friends, Anne and Sophia, tried to convince her to date someone, especially the wealthy boys who often asked for her attention. But Hannah remained resolute, believing that there was time for everything and that her future was built on hard work, not romance. Little did she know that fate had different plans for her. One day, while having lunch in the cafeteria with Anne and Sophia, a young man named Max approached their table. He looked directly at Hannah and boldly said, "I will marry you, and you will be my wife." At first, Hannah was amused. "You'll marry me? I don't even know you," she laughed. "And who says I want to marry you?" Max simply smiled, handed her a note with his phone number, and walked away. His words, though strange, left a lasting impression on Hannah's friends, but she brushed it off as just another odd encounter. She didn't think much of it. Weeks later, during exams, a package arrived for Hannah. It was a beautiful gold necklace, accompanied by a note that ended with the name Maximum. Though initially skeptical, her friends convinced her to wear it. The moment the necklace touched her skin, something inside her changed. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a sudden connection to Maximum. This unexplainable feeling made her restless. She couldn't get him out of her mind. The next morning, she rushed out of her hostel, telling her friend Sophia that she needed to buy sanitary towels. But deep down, she was determined to find Maximum. She called him, and he directed her to his hostel. When they met, Max said, "I told you I would marry you." And without a word, Hannah embraced him. Their relationship progressed quickly, surprising everyone, including her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Edward, though skeptical at first, agreed to meet Maximum. Despite their concerns about his humble background, they allowed him into their lives. Max, the son of farmers from Bakassi village, came from a family with no formal education. Yet, he had something that Hannah couldn't ignore, his unwavering love and certainty about their future together. As time went on, they graduated, and Max proposed to Hannah in a simple but heartfelt manner. She accepted without hesitation. The wedding day arrived, and everything seemed perfect. Hannah walked down the aisle with her father, looking like a princess in her wedding gown. Her parents gave them a beautiful home and a car as gifts, and Max was given a job at her father's company. However, their happiness was short-lived. Soon after their wedding, tragedy struck. Hannah's first pregnancy ended in heartbreak when the baby died just days after birth. Hannah was devastated. Despite her grief, Max remained supportive, reassuring her that they would try again. But the same thing happened with 2 more pregnancies, each ending in the death of their newborn child. Hannah became consumed with sorrow, feeling as though something was terribly wrong with her. Her mother, a nurse, tried to console her, urging her to stay hopeful. "If you don't let go of the past, you won't be able to have another child," her mother warned. But Hannah couldn't help but question why this was happening to her. After the third loss, Hannah became desperate for answers. She visited a prophet recommended by her mother, hoping he could provide some clarity. The prophet's cryptic words only left her more confused. When the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? He asked. All will be made clear soon enough. He advised Hannah to keep her next pregnancy a secret until after the birth, promising that all would be revealed in time. Months passed, and Hannah became pregnant once more. This time, she kept the pregnancy a secret, not telling anyone, not even her family. She and Max agreed not to share the news until after the baby was born. Finally, the day came. Hannah went into labor, and after a difficult delivery, she gave birth to a baby boy. But that's when things took a strange turn. Just after the delivery, the old man rushed into the hospital labor ward. His appearance was mysterious and unsettling, and his demand for the baby's placenta set off a chain of events that would reveal hidden truths about Hannah's family, Max's past, and a secret that would change their lives forever. As the nurse delivered the joyous news to Max, his heart almost skipped a beat. A bouncing baby boy. He couldn't believe it. After everything they'd been through, this was a dream come true. Max rushed into the room, overwhelmed with joy and relief, hugging his wife tightly. But there was something in the air, an unfamiliar tension that Hannah couldn't shake off. Just then, the door to the room opened, and standing in the doorway was an old man, a man Hannah had never seen before. He looked familiar, though she couldn't place him. His face was serious, and his eyes, dark and piercing, locked onto Max. Max, his face filled with excitement, paused for a moment before recognizing the man. "Dad," he said in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" The old man, Max's father, didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked toward the bed where Hannah lay with their newborn son. "Give me the placenta," he demanded in a low, cold voice. Hannah's eyes widened in shock. Max, too, looked confused. "What? Why would you want the placenta?" he asked, his voice shaking with both concern and disbelief. Her mind raced back to the prophecy from the prophet, the words that echoed in her ears. When the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? She still couldn't understand what it meant, but she had a deep sense that it was all somehow connected to Max and his family. The old man's gaze never wavered, and there was something unsettling in his presence. "The placenta belongs to the family," he said firmly. "It is part of our tradition. It's mine." Hannah felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of unease. The nurse, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. "Sir," she said, trying to maintain professionalism, "the placenta can either go to the mother or the father. In this case, I will allow the mother to handle it." But Max's father wasn't listening. He raised his voice, now visibly angered. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" he shouted at the nurse. "This is a family matter, and I have the right to the placenta. You have no say in this." Hannah, still holding her newborn son, felt a chill run down her spine. What was happening? She looked at Max, who was still standing there, silent, unsure of how to react. It was as if he was caught in a web of family secrets he didn't fully understand. "Max, what's going on?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why does your father want the placenta? What does this mean?" Max, looking at his father, shook his head. I don't know. He's always been like this. Always insisting on certain things. But this is different. It's not right." The old man's gaze softened, just slightly, but his words remained sharp. "This is not about right or wrong. This is about keeping the family strong, maintaining the power of our bloodline." Hannah was now fully unsettled. There was something in the way the old man spoke, something that felt far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. The words echoed in her mind. "The power of our bloodline." As the tension in the room thickened, the nurse quickly intervened. "Sir, you must leave. This is not the place for family disputes." But Max's father stood his ground, staring at his son with a look that sent shivers down their spines. "We will talk later," he muttered before turning and leaving the room without another word. Max and Hannah exchanged worried glances. What had just happened? What was this all about? Why did Max's father seem to be so fixated on the placenta? The room fell into a deep silence as Max's father turned toward the door. Everyone could feel something wasn't right. The air became cold, the lights flickered for a moment, and just as the old man was about to step out of the ward, something unexpected happened. One of the women who had been quietly serving water and food to guests stepped forward. Nobody knew who she was. She wore a simple wrapper and scarf, blending into the background like just another hospital helper. But now, she stood tall, her face serious and bold. She looked straight at the old man and said in a loud, clear voice, "Do you want to take this baby too, as you've taken the other ones?" The room froze. Even the nurses stopped moving. Everyone turned to look. Max's father turned around slowly, his face twisted in shock and anger. "Woman, mind your business," he barked. "Stay out of this. If I don't take this placenta, calamity will fall on everyone in this room." But the woman didn't move. She stood her ground, raised her hands, and began to pray loudly, calling on fire, calling on heaven, calling on truth. "Old man," she shouted, "it's either you confess now or you die this night. Confess, or the ground will swallow you." Suddenly, Max's father began to shake. His legs gave way and he dropped to his knees. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. "Let me confess," he cried. "Let me talk before it's too late." No, no. The atmosphere changed. Nobody dared breathe. Max stood still like a statue. Hannah clutched her baby tighter, tears filling her eyes. She didn't understand what was happening, and the atmosphere changed. Nobody dared breathe. Max stood still like a statue. Hannah clutched her baby tighter, tears filling her eyes. She didn't understand what was happening, until the old man began to speak. His voice was slow, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "It started a long time ago, from the beginning of our family line. In our family, every first son must sacrifice 6 of their newborn babies. 6. That is the curse that was placed on us generations ago. It is a blood covenant made by our forefathers. It is the reason we marry strangers, women from other towns, women who do not know the curse in our family. Because the women in our village already know the truth, and they refuse to marry into our family." The woman praying gasped. The nurses backed away in horror. The old man continued. "When my son, Max, came to me and said he wanted to marry Hannah, I helped him. I used a charm. That was why she refused to listen to her parents. That was why she fell in love with him suddenly. It wasn't with her clear eyes. I used something to cover her spirit." Hannah broke down in tears. Everything was making sense now. "All the babies that have died. I am responsible." The old man sobbed. "In our family, the first son must take the placenta of each newborn and cook it in a secret pot in the forest. It must be done 6 times. That is the only way the first son will live to see 50 years. If he fails, he dies before 50. Everyone was in shock. Nurses, doctors, other patients. The room was no longer just a hospital ward. It had become a courtroom of truth and judgment. The woman who had spoken earlier stepped closer to the old man. "And what about Max?" she asked. The old man looked at Max with tears in his eyes. "Max is in the know." He agreed. "He has already sacrificed 3 babies. He took their placentas and gave them to me. I did the cooking. This baby is the 4th. That's why I came. That's why I must take the placenta." Hannah screamed. Her whole body shook. Max stood frozen. His eyes were wide. He wanted to speak, but words refused to come out. The woman looked at Max. "Is it true?" she asked. "Tell us the truth. Is it true?" Max lowered his head. He didn't answer. The silence in the ward was thick. Max stood, frozen like a statue. His lips trembled, but he said nothing. Everyone waited for him to speak, but instead, his father continued. "Max could answer, but let me speak," the old man said, tears running down his face. "This 4th child, he didn't tell me his wife was pregnant, but we saw it in the coven." His voice broke. "The spirits showed us. They told us the baby had been conceived. I knew I had to act fast. That's why I tied her womb spiritually. That's why the baby didn't come early. I delayed the birth. I used charms to stop her from delivering, until I could come and collect the placenta with my own hands. There was a loud gasp from behind the curtain. Hannah's mother had heard everything. She rushed into the ward, her wrapper half tied, her eyes red with fear. She ran to the bed where her daughter lay weak, still holding the newborn close to her chest. Hannah was crying. She was shaking her head over and over, whispering, "No, no, this can't be true. Max wouldn't do this to me. Max wouldn't." But her mother held her and said, "My daughter, we've been used. That's why you refused to listen to us when we warned you. It wasn't love. It was charm. They chose you for this. For sacrifice." Hannah let out a loud cry. She looked at Max, her eyes full of pain and betrayal. "So you never loved me. All this time. You used me for this evil thing." Max opened his mouth but no words came. He was confused. Lost. Trapped between guilt and fear. He turned to his father, who was now on the hospital floor, shouting like a madman. "Give me the placenta," the old man screamed. "Let me go. If I don't take it, the curse will fall on us all." The old man struggled with wild strength. He tried to run, but the security men were fast. Two of them held him down. Another one brought ropes. He shouted, cried, and cursed, but they chained him. Max watched, his heart beating fast, as the man who raised him, the man who taught him how to walk, was dragged like a mad prophet, still screaming about placentas and curses. He was taken to the psychiatric hospital that same night. Back in the ward, Hannah held her baby tight, still shaking, still trying to make sense of the truth. The woman who exposed everything, the one who had been praying, stood beside her, praying in tongues and crying softly. No one could sleep that night. Max stood in a corner, alone. His wife hated him. His secret was out. And the baby, the innocent baby, was now caught between a cursed bloodline and a mother who felt like she was never truly loved. The next morning came with heavy clouds. The sun was up, but it refused to shine. Hannah had not slept a wink. She sat by the window in the hospital room, her newborn baby in her arms, her mother beside her, both quiet like mourners at a funeral. Max stood by the wall, hands folded, eyes red. He hadn't slept either. He hadn't moved much. He hadn't said a word since the night before. His world was crashing down. Then the woman who had exposed everything, the one who had served food, the one who stood boldly in front of the old man, walked into the room again. Everyone turned to look at her. She looked different now. Not like a server. Not like a worker. She wore a long white scarf over her shoulders, and her eyes carried the fire of someone who had seen things. Ancient things. She looked at Max and said, "You know me. But you don't know who I am." Max raised his head slowly. "My name is Miriam. My grandmother was the one who stopped this curse many years ago, but they killed her. Your grandfather and his brothers hunted her like an animal because she exposed them. But the curse never stopped. And now, you are the new branch of the same evil tree." Hannah's mother stood up, shocked. "So you've been watching them?" Miriam nodded. "Yes. I've been waiting for the day the chain will break. That's why I was sent here. Not to serve food, but to save this child. And this woman. Because if you, Max, take this child home today, the same spirit that took the others will come again. You may not do it with your hands, but you are already part of the altar. Your silence, your loyalty to your father, it has made you guilty." Max broke down, fell to his knees and wept. "I didn't want to lose them. I didn't know it would go this far. I only did what my father told me. He said it was the only way for me to have wealth, long life, power." Hannah turned her back. She couldn't bear to hear it. Her voice came out cold. "And me? What about me? What about my love? My body? My pain? The children I carried and lost? What was I to you?" Max looked up, tears dripping from his eyes. "You were everything. But I was weak. I couldn't fight it. I wanted to stop after the second child, but I was scared." Miriam stepped forward. Max, this is your final chance. You must break the covenant with your mouth. You must speak against your father's altar. Or you will lose everything, your wife, your child, your mind. And this curse will continue in your son. Max looked at the baby. So small. So innocent. Then he stood up, slowly, walked to the baby and placed his hand on the tiny chest. And in front of everyone, he said, I break the curse with my mouth. I reject the blood sacrifice. I renounce every altar I was part of. This child will not die. This curse ends with me. I choose life over tradition. I choose truth over fear. Suddenly, the baby sneezed. 3 times. Miriam smiled. The spirit has left, she said softly. Now it is your wife's choice. If she will forgive you, or walk away. Hannah looked up. Her eyes met Max's. There was pain, but there was also something else. Hannah looked into Max's eyes. She didn't see the man she fell in love with. She didn't see the man who held her when their first child died. She didn't see the man who promised her forever. She saw a stranger who had watched her cry, scream, bleed, and still kept secrets. Her mother touched her shoulder gently, whispering, My daughter, your heart is broken, but your mind must be clear. Hannah stood up, slowly. Her legs were weak, but her voice was strong. Max, she said, holding her baby tightly, you killed my joy, and now you want to fix it with words. Max tried to speak, but she raised her hand to stop him. You had the chance to protect me, to protect our babies. But you protected a curse instead. You knew they were dying one by one, and you still let me carry the 4th. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was not your wife, Maximum. I was your sacrifice. Everyone in the room went silent. Even Miriam bowed her head. Hannah walked to the hospital door, her mother by her side, and just before she stepped out, she turned and said, I forgive you, but I'm leaving. My child will not grow up around you. I won't raise him in fear. I won't risk being pregnant again under your roof. I loved you, Maximum, but I love myself more now. She walked out. Step by step. No one stopped her. Max fell to the ground, hands on his head, crying. Loud. Loud like a man who had lost everything. Miriam knelt beside him and whispered, The curse is broken. But so is your home. After leaving the hospital, Hannah didn't look back. Her heart was torn, but her mind was set. She moved back into her family's home, a place that felt like peace, away from the chaos Max had caused. Her family, though wealthy and respected, hadn't been part of her troubles. They had warned her, even when she refused to listen. Her mother welcomed her back with open arms, no questions asked. But her father, always a man of few words, simply nodded and offered her a chair by the window, the way he used to when she was younger, before life had gotten complicated. Days turned into weeks, and the pain of betrayal was still fresh, but slowly, the wounds began to heal. Hannah's mother made sure she had everything she needed, but it wasn't just the material things that helped, it was the love, the safety, the sense of belonging. Her father, although quiet, made sure to remind her that no matter what had happened, she was never alone. It wasn't long before Hannah began to feel a shift in herself. She realized she could breathe again. She could live again. She was not defined by what Max had done to her, or the curse that had almost destroyed her. Her strength returned, piece by piece. One afternoon, after weeks of silence from Max, a letter arrived. It was from Max's father, the man who had caused it all. He had written a heartfelt apology, one that could have seemed sincere if it weren't for the underlying desperation in his words. Hannah, I know my actions have destroyed your life and the life of your child. But I am a man lost in the grip of a curse I could not control. I beg you to reconsider your choice and let Max come home. The weight of this is too heavy for him to bear. He has tried to break free, but the curse is stronger than both of us. Please, for the sake of your child, forgive him. Hannah stared at the letter for hours, contemplating the weight of it. Her hands trembled, and for the first time in weeks, tears began to form. But they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of strength. She folded the letter, placed it in her drawer, and closed it. Her mother walked in and saw her standing there, holding the letter. "What will you do?" she asked softly. Hannah sighed, but her voice was steady. "I'm done, Mama. I've given everything I had. But I will not let the past steal my future. Max made his choice, and I will make mine. I will give my son a life of peace. A life of love. Not a life filled with curses and secrets. He's my responsibility now." And that was when she knew. She was free. Free to build a future without fear. Free to raise her son in a world where love wasn't a curse. One particular day, while sitting on the balcony of her family's home, with the sun setting in the distance, Hannah found herself lost in thought. She remembered the words of the prophet who had warned her about the curse, the warnings about Max's family and the path they walked. She couldn't help but replay everything in her mind. Why did Max do this to me, she thought. How could he claim to love me, knowing that he didn't? How could he watch me bury our children, knowing he was responsible for their deaths? How could I ever be married to a man who said he loved me but was worse than an enemy? How could he betray me like this? The pain of the years, the losses, the heartbreak, it all rushed back to her in waves. But through the pain, something in her shifted. She wasn't angry anymore. She was determined. She couldn't stay silent. Hannah's journey had only just begun. The wealth of her family didn't define her. It was the love, the support, and the lessons she had learned through her pain. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a mother, a daughter, and most importantly, a woman who had reclaimed her life. Hannah's world had shifted completely. After receiving her father-in-law's letter, Max had tried everything he could to reach out to her. He called, he sent messages, even letters. But Hannah had made her decision. She couldn't go back to that life. Her lawyers, acting on her behalf, soon delivered the divorce papers to Maximum. She knew it would hurt him, but she also knew it was necessary. There was no going back from what had happened. The betrayal was too deep, the darkness surrounding their relationship too thick to see any light. The pain of the years, the losses, the heartbreak, it all rushed back to her in waves. But through the pain, something in her shifted. She wasn't angry anymore. She was determined. She couldn't stay silent anymore. She had to speak out, for herself and for others. That's when it hit her. The world needed to know. If her story could help even one person, she would share it. She didn't care about the shame or the judgment. What had happened to her wasn't just her burden to bear. It was a warning. A warning to every young woman who dreamed of marriage, to every woman carrying a child, to every man who thought love could solve everything. Hannah opened her phone, and with steady hands, she created a social media account. It was time to speak the truth. She started by writing a simple message to every young lady thinking about getting married: be careful who you choose. Know the person you're marrying, ask questions. Do not ignore the red flags. Both men and women need to be careful. If you're pregnant, be cautious who handles your baby's placenta. The things we don't know can cost us more than we realize. Do you know where your placenta was buried? Do you know where your baby's placenta was buried? It was a bold message, but Hannah didn't care. She was done hiding her pain. She had experienced something so twisted that she couldn't stay silent anymore. If it helped save just one life, if it helped prevent one woman from going down the same dark path she had walked, it would be worth it. The post quickly went viral, shared by women and men alike, some with their own stories of betrayal, others in disbelief at the severity of what she was saying. But whatever the response, Hannah didn't care. She had spoken her truth. As the days passed, the message spread. Her followers grew, and soon, women from all over began sharing their own experiences, both painful and eye-opening. Hannah realized she was no longer just a victim of betrayal. She was a voice of caution, a beacon of strength for others who needed to hear the truth. Her decision to share her story didn't erase the pain, but it gave her a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just warning others about the danger of betrayal, she was helping women reclaim their power. Her life, though altered forever, had a new direction. It was no longer about revenge or bitterness. It was about healing, understanding, and giving others the chance to avoid the same dark fate she had narrowly escaped. But before Hannah ended her story, she left her viewers with a strong, painful, and very real warning. She said, "Please, don't accept gifts without praying. Even if it's from someone you love, someone you trust. Pray. I remember the first gift Max gave me, back when I didn't even know him well. It was a necklace. I wore it every day, thinking it was just love. But I didn't know that necklace was the beginning of my bondage. He used it to charm me, to tie me to him, and that was how I ended up marrying a man who was never meant for me. Her words hit home. Ask questions before you get married. Pray, fast, seek revelation. Many women are smiling in public but crying behind closed doors. Some have lost their lives. Some are trapped in darkness and don't even know it. Love is not enough. Marriage is not magic. Be wise. Hannah's voice shook, not from fear, but from truth. Not every smile means love. Not every gift means care. Be spiritually alert. Be emotionally aware. The devil doesn't come with horns, sometimes he comes with roses. And with that, her story ended. Thank you, Bonietta lovers, for watching. If you enjoyed this story, do subscribe and turn on your notification bell for more interesting African stories with Bonietta.